Okay, the time is 5:11. We're going to call to order the Finance and Purchasing Committee meeting of Monday, July 15th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo?
Here.
Alderman Kirkwood? Alderman Rivera?
Present.
Alderman Seager?
Present.
Alderman Newsome?
Present. Item B. Item C. Approval of the minutes. Take a motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera, to approve the committee meeting minutes of June 17th, 2019 for Finance and Purchasing Committee. Is there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Public comment, is there anyone that wants to take the podium, please?
My name is Don Quinn, and you know my address. It's in the records several hundred times. I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to talk about item A and item C. I'm not going to talk about the attorneys because I understand that our attorneys don't litigate, so they have to hire litigators to do that. But on the motion to grant a bona fide operating emergency waiver, we're waiving this bid because of the work that I assume that has already been done at the water plant. And motions on C, the motion to a good faith waiver for a competitive bidding process for the Campanella thing. The city treasurer explained to me what they're going to do with that. Now my question is, we are waiving so much stuff. We should have something in our ordinance that says if an emergency operation takes place, we don't need to come to the city council and waive a bid. We should just pay them.
Right.
Okay?
That's what this is doing, that's setting aside.
Yes, but you're saying you're going to waive the bid process. Well, what you should do is say we should be able to pay an emergency work if the line goes out and you have to bring somebody in to do it.
Right.
We should be authorized to do that on an emergency basis,
Right.
rather than saying we need to waive the bidding process.
Right.
Okay, that's
Okay,
all
we
I'm
can-
saying about that.
Okay.
The other one, I don't understand that at all. While you're having a good faith waiver on the competitive bidding for Campanella, are they the only ones that can stand by and watch as we do some digging and make sure that the lines are done? Because this has not been done yet, if my understanding is correct.
No, some of the work hasn't been done, but Mr. Hewitt is not here, is he here? I thought I saw him earlier.
Mike must have known I was coming.
He might be in the office there, I thought I saw him. She's gone again.
But it's
On the emergency, on the emergency?
Not on the emergency.
No, I just wanted to go back to that. In our
Yes.
city code, it does say that the first city council meeting immediately after the work was done, we do have to bring the matter to city council and have it approved after the fact. And we have to have it on the record that it was a bona fide operating emergency. And I believe there may be a vote number, I'm not sure, I'd have to look, but instead of 50%, it might have to be like a 3/4 vote or something like that. So there is in our ordinance, it does require that it be brought before city council for official blessing after the fact.
I have no problem with that. It
The
should
wording.
say we're waiving the bidding process.
Okay.
Because it seems like there was a bidding process when there was no need for one because it was an emergency. That's
Okay,
because every
Okay.
time I hear it, we're waiving this, waiving that, but this should not, like you're saying, if it's in the ordinance, then we should just go ahead and say, because of emergency work done, we're granting this thing, and let the council vote on that.
Could the ordinance be changed or not?
Well, I think it's just a vernacular issue that you're suggesting we should say approve, retroactive approval instead of using the word
Yeah.
waiving the bid.
Waiving a bidding process is what, you
according to
I'll take that up
Corpora-
with Corporation
with
Council.
Yeah,
can probably do that. And the other
He's-
one, well, I
Wait,
guess
wait,
we're
wait,
gonna
he's gonna
discuss
speak
this
to it.
anyway about the Campanella thing, but
right.
you know, that is something, if they are the sole source, because sole source non-bidding, I understand that. Okay, there's only one company that can do that. But Campanella, because they're a preferred vendor, I don't understand that. If someone else can come in and do that, then we should bid it out.
Mr. Hewitt, is there a reason why we have,
Joe, can I answer that?
sure,
The reason why we go with them is because if I call them up right now, they'll be there within an hour. And other companies, we haven't had that luxury. And that's why we're doing it, because these are emergencies, so we're gonna ask them.
But Campanella,
Yes.
it's an emergency.
for,
Whenever, if we call them, in other words, I'm not just gonna say, no, I want you to go do this job. If I call them, it's because the reason we're doing this is we're going to be opening valves and water mains, and I don't know what's gonna break, if it's gonna break, or nothing may break. But I wanna have the ability to call
in cases of emergency.
I'm just not gonna say.
In- Bless you.
I'm gonna call that. It really is emergency work.
If the emergency happens.
Yeah, hopefully, if I'm lucky, we won't have any.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
As long as we're on that topic, let me just indicate that the state statute of the Purchasing Act, the bidding requirements have a waiver built into it, so you need to do an actual waiver. That's why the language is in there. It's just to satisfy the state code.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear that? He said it's in compliance with state statute that that language be included.
So that you have to waive every, I'm sorry, I
Mhm.
didn't speak.
All right, thank you. I'm going to take a motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Moiseo, to move item update reports and communications, update the Lake County Regional 911 Consolidation Project,
Number 3A.
number 3A. Motion to bring that up forward.
Sure.
Is there any questions on the motion?
No.
All those in favor?
No.
Mr. Jim?
Good evening.
Jim, I'm sorry, could you make sure you speak into the mic? We're having a little trouble hearing you. up
I
here.
will do
Thank
that,
you.
yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
My name is Jim Hawkins. I'm the project manager for the Regional 911 Consolidation Project. I was asked to come tonight to just give an update to Waukegan, to the Finance Committee, just on where we are. Since September, I've been the project manager on this. I've also included a slide deck within your package. I'll roll through that. I may call out a couple pictures, but I'll just speak to it as we go. So the project consists of about 21 public safety entities that have come together, and Waukegan is one of those 21 public safety entities, to look at writing a plan to consolidate 911 centers within Lake County. So the project is organized with a policy committee on top, of which Alderman Newsom sits on that committee, and then your police chief and police department sits on an operations committee underneath the policy committee, and then there are 8 working groups underneath those committees that are doing the work of looking at technology, things like maps and governance and those type of things within the construct of the project. Again, the goal is to write a plan, and that's what I was hired and brought on to do. So the purpose is to build an implementation plan that consolidates regional 911 services in order to provide the highest quality service and lasting value for the residents of participating communities. So to put that simply, it's about getting the right public safety resources to the right place with the right information in the shortest amount of time, and then supporting those public safety entities while they're on scene. That's just breaking it down to really the simplest form of what we're trying to do with this project and writing the plan. So even though it's 21 public safety entities, I'll just give you a couple of numbers on the folks who are participating in the project. So if you break down those 21 public safety entities, it equates to about 9 public safety answering points, which are 911 centers or dispatch centers, again, of which Waukegan is one of them. There are 26 municipalities, 12 fire protection districts, 1 county. The county is also a partner within this evolution. 28 law enforcement entities, 20 fire protection, fire agencies, and then 7 emergency telephone system boards, or the ETSBs, again, of which Waukegan is one of them, participating in the project. So overall, with those entities, they're covering about 580 to 600,000 residents within Lake County are really being covered by the services in this project. So it's a pretty significant amount. It's not everybody in the county, but it's a significant amount covered in one way, shape, or form by those public safety answering points for the ETSBs that are participating. So in the pack on slide 7, it's just a series of 3 maps. So you don't have to break them out. I'll talk through them very quickly if you have time later to look at them. But there's 3 maps on slides 7 and 8. And the reason I bring those out is that the first map is when you call 911 in the county, there's about 14 entities that are going to answer 911. Waukegan is one of them, but there's about 13 other 911 centers that pick that up. When you go to the next slide, it talks about who dispatches fire and police, and those are different as well. So the problems that exist within the county when it comes to 911, or the challenges, I should say, exists really basically because those maps don't match. You call 911 and then you gotta transfer to somebody else to get police to show up, or you've gotta transfer to somebody else to get fire to show up. Now, Waukegan is pretty contiguous in your boundaries, but if you look throughout the rest of the county, a lot of those don't match. And that's really the problem, or one of the issues or challenges we're trying to work through within this project. Say make the maps match, but really get a better public service and public safety service to the community that's out there, so when they dial 911, somebody shows up quickly and in the right spot. So moving forward, we are working on a concept of operations right now. So we've gone through an assessment phase. We've spent a number of months doing that, bringing the numbers together, and now the group is working on some concepts of operation, really what the next thing looks like. And the board's just approved 2 weeks ago a concept of operations, call it a 3-tiered concept of operations that we're now going to detail plan. As I talked to all the partners, most of the partners are starting at different spots, and a number of the partners that want to end in different spots. So we needed to bring a concept forward that was really taking everybody's input. And so these 3 tiers are possibly just doing a consolidation of or buying the same stuff, the same technologies, kind of that first tier. These aren't steps, they're just independent tiers. That might be some place that an entity wants to end up. There might be a virtual consolidation, which is having the same stuff, but then having connectivity and the same policies and procedures, acting as one. And then the third one, I think, is what most folks are familiar with, is a physical consolidation, where you start bringing your centers together, and so you get to less physical 911 centers or PSAPs. So that's the concept that we're now detail planning, and we're just starting that up. And when we get a little bit further, happy to come back and talk to you a little bit more about how that concept planning has gone. But again, I was brought on to lead the planning project. That's what we're doing, is we're planning. We're taking input from all the participants, and again, the goal is to make this a better public safety service for the folks who are participating here in Lake County. And I'm standing by for any questions if you have.
Did you want to speak? Any questions? Are there any questions? Excuse me. Alderman Seeger?
When did I begin this project? So the entities came together last summer, and I was hired in September. So I've been working on the project since September, and it was formed by an intergovernmental agreement that brought me on board. There's a sub-consultant who's also working on the project. But to answer your question, personally, I've been working on it since September. The group has been working on it since, I'll say, probably July, May of last year, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. One of the issues I have in parts of my ward is there's an area where when people use a cell phone to call 911, it bounces to the wrong place. Is that going to be addressed?
That is, I didn't go into that detail, but we can talk cell phones. That is, if you again look at those maps, now if you take all the lines on those maps and blur them out, that's cell phones. So the maps that I gave you were based on landlines. Right now, about 75 to 78% of the calls coming to 911 centers are coming from cell phones, and that's the problem countywide. There are so many PSAPs, answering points, and the cell phones right now are going to the nearest tower. So that is one of the significant challenges of what this project should try to fix, is making less lines on those maps, but making cell phone coverage and people dialing 911 off a cell phone, getting it to the right place in the right time so you do so. But yes, that is a major issue of what we are focusing on, and there's a couple of things that are going on in that realm.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
In
Mayor?
relation to the 911, as we all know, Alderman, there's a 911 fetus on everybody's landline. As we start moving toward non-landlines, those 911 fees now go to where the person purchased the cell phone at. For example, a lot of cell phones used to be purchased out of Waukegan. Now those cell phones are probably purchased out of Gurnee or Wadsworth, or we do not get those 911 dollars, but the service call still comes back to Waukegan Police, Waukegan Fire. So that's something that I'm going to be talking to not only myself but other mayors, to how do we now redirect those 911 dollars to go to the correct 911 location.
Why wouldn't they base it on their address and not like where they purchase it from? That
Well,
seems
that's-
insane.
Well, it was based on the address of where you bought the phone.
Yeah, but it
So
should be
we-
where the billing address is for the phone.
Well, that's something we're gonna try to incorporate into this, but the overall objective here is centralizing these, we call them, I'm gonna call them customer service centers, is really what they should be called. And I believe, and I'm saying this now, that the city of Waukegan need to play a major role in being one of those hubs. If you look at our city, Zion, North Chicago, Property Gurney, Park City, from a mutual aid standpoint, we do it already now. We're doing it now. So it makes a lot more sense for, on the northeastern part of the county of Lake, that we need to be thinking about being playing a major role in that. The challenge we're gonna have is preparation. The cost of this center, let's take about the center, the cost of the equipment alone is gonna be a huge undertaking. That's why those 911 dollars are so important. So I caution, I should say I caution, but I would want to just give everybody notice, I am expecting for us to be one of those players on the northeast part of the state of Illinois. I'm on check, and certainly in the county of Lake, as to where that center is positioned. That can be, in my opinion, be critical of how we deliver our service, particularly on this east of 41. It is what it is. We're doing the most mutual aid right now. We take up mutual aid calls. Waukegan is there because it's just the way we're centralized. So that's something we're certainly going to be. Most of you probably don't know he's in a new role now. They used to be in a Navy uniform for over 30 years, almost 30, correct?
27.
27. At Great Lakes was the equivalent to the mayor he was at the Great Lakes Naval Base, Captain Hawkins. So thank you, Mayor. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Mayor.
I
Thank you very
I
much.
have
for
a
your
question
time.
too, then it would come down to finding a location
Yeah,
in this
correct.
area that could house that, you know.
Yeah, and there's a couple of options going to be going on. The county's going to be making some moves relatively soon. Could be next door. They're going to be making some moves over there where that building will become available. So there's some things we're going to talk about as we move forward. But to your point, we wanted to go to the address so then it can get their address to show what city they're in.
But even that's deceiving because we have a lot of our Waukegan residents that are Libertyville or Gurney mailing addresses. Wadsworth.
So,
Yeah.
but we got to work that out. But once we get this taken care of, then we can go back into those. I don't know. It might be the state who did that. I don't know who really did that.
I think if you're talking about that ETSB money, sir, yeah, that is state-run. It's definitely an enabler to this whole project. We
Yes.
have about 4 enabling lines that go into this consolidation planning, and the 911 money is definitely a major player on that from a lot of perspectives, to your points. So we are looking at that as a parallel path, but as a group, not individual municipalities, but each of the ETSBs are talking and playing within the 7 that we have participating.
So just to kind of let you know, if you start hearing those checks. But thank you for that, Alderman.
No problem.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. All right, we'll go back to the agenda. Item A, motion to grant a bona fide operating emergency waiver to the competitive bidding process pursuant to Section 2-458 I-2 and retroactively approve the award of a contract to Northern Divers USA relative to the flooding repairs at the water plant for a not-to-exceed amount of $56,270. This project utilizes 2018 water and sewer bond funds. Take a motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera. Any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Seager.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Motion carried. Item B, motion authorizing the retention of McDonald Hopkins LLC to provide specialized legal services under the direction and supervision of Corporation Counsel. Motion by Alderman Seager, second by Alderman Moiseo. Corporation Counsel, Mr. Long.
Good evening, Alderman. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Greg Kessler. I'll give you some background information before the meeting, before we confirm our resume. We're here to answer any questions. Obviously, we don't want to talk about the litigation itself. But with that, I'll stand back. If you've got any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Alderman Taylor.
My only question in this is, I know that we would farm this out to you, but why were we not told about it beforehand in an executive council meeting that there would be pending litigation? Because that response by you was done by June 30th, and we had an executive council meeting on June 3rd that we could have discussed this in. Is there a reason why it wasn't discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd be glad to answer that question in closed session.
Okay, because the only reason I'm asking this is, as you know, residents have been coming and saying, why are you farming out all of this litigation? And it kind of puts us in the position of, why are we not even aware of the litigation until it's happening? You know what I mean?
I understand.
So like, how, can you address that tonight when it comes up, if it comes up?
Well, probably not.
Okay.
I probably will have to do that in closed session.
Okay, because it puts all of us in an awkward position when we're asked. I don't think you heard all the question, but,
Because of things that came to us at the last minute, we had to make this move. We had to get somebody on. We'll brief you, but we didn't want to brief you until we did a certain move that was critical to where we were at. And let me give you why. The anticipation, help me out, Bob, the anticipation of signing the legislation was supposed to be in August. When we heard about he had signed it right on that Friday, we had to do what we did. If not, it would have jeopardized that 120 days.
okay.
So that was the reason why, and it had to be done. We can tell you a little bit more about it. And
No, I think that's a good enough explanation to
yeah,
give
like-
to the public, but, my concern is always, the questions that have been coming. Why are
Yeah,
you getting
yes.
litigation and you're not, the public doesn't have a say-so on it, and
And,
you know what it's like from this end. That's that's an answer to.
well, and I can assure you, we received something that we did not have from an individual, which prompted this immediate response. Just tonight, I just received something that I'm going to be sharing with you when we get some copies that I just got tonight that's going to help in this situation. But one-on-one, we can talk about it, but we needed to do this immediately because I was anticipating, I think we all were, that the gaming legislation was probably going to be put out, I thought August. I heard August, the signing of it. So that's why we had some strategy, but one, the decision was to sign it that Friday. We needed to, once the legislation was signed, we needed to do something immediately in order to counter that. If not, it would jeopardize. So that's the long or the short is, but I'll get you.
I appreciate that answer,
Yeah.
because it helps, I think it helps all of us as aldermen to, when those questions come up, that we have an answer that can say, well, we didn't just hire them and then we found out about it afterwards. It's almost like those emergency waiver type of things. It's like,
Yes.
I think it's nice to be able to tell people this is, in a nutshell, kind of what happened without giving them the details.
Yeah, and I do apologize if it's put anybody in an uncomfortable position of explaining, but it was more from a strategic standpoint, and I was going to brief you once not only there was a filing the signing and this, then we're going to brief because it would have all been laid out much more clear than it is as we're kind of piecemeal. All
That
right?
makes sense. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Appreciate it. And thank this gentleman for coming in. We literally got him on the 9th hour. Unfortunate, well, fortunate, all right? Thank you. If there's anything that you want to say to...
Happy to answer any questions. I'm a resident of Lake County, lifelong. I started as a prosecutor here in 1982. I've always maintained an office in Waukegan, even after the firm that I founded, we merged with a larger firm 10 years ago. So happy to be of assistance, but happy to answer any questions this morning.
Well, I spoke with Mr. Bob Long, Corporation Counsel, and he can let you know my question was the fee. So are you as low as you can go?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a fair question.
Okay, that was my question, so I got my answer.
Anyone else?
All right. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Seager?
Alderman Seager?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item C, motion to grant a good faith waiver to the competitive bidding process pursuant to Section 2-458 subsection I-7 and approve the award of a contract to Caponella and Sons in order to make sewer repairs as necessary during the 2019-2020 fiscal year for a not-to-exceed amount of $100,000. This project utilizes 2018 water and sewer bond funds. Motion by Alderman Seager, second by Alderman Rivera. Are there any questions on the motion? We kind of discussed that a little bit in the beginning. Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Seager?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item D, motion to approve the award of 4 contracts during the 2019-2020 fiscal year to the lowest responsible bidder, GNS Services, relative to mowing services as follows. $9,300, 6-week contract, $18,800 for cemeteries, $25,600 biweekly contract, and $27,700 weekly contract. Motion by Alderman Rivera. Okay, second by Alderman Moiseo. Alderman Rivera.
I took a look at the proposals, and I guess the landscape concept was the only one that was pretty consistent in giving us actual bids. The comparisons, though, are $200,000 to $81,000, which obviously we took the lower one. Have we always used this service? And the previous service that's charging $200,000, I mean, do you know what that disparity is between such a huge amount?
Well, to be honest with you, what we did was, we went through the bids. GNS we'd used for how many years? Okay, and we'd have add-ons and little issues. So we came up with actually a good bid. We had bi-weeklies, we went through everything. And there may be some that we may have to pay a little more because there might be adjustments here. But we've tried to figure out everything we own, what we were doing that we didn't own, which we found quite a few. And now we're getting complaints because why aren't you cutting them, but we don't own them. So actually they did, it was cheaper than the original, what we were paying them. So I think by putting it out there for competitive bid, it became an issue where they had to really sharpen their pencils instead of having a contract for like 5 years. So this was, I thought, a really good contract.
Oh, no, it looks like a wonderful bid compared, to the comparison.
And like I say, there may be some adjustments. I may have to come to you and say, hey, we forgot this one or not.
Okay.
We're working on it. I'll tell you, we eliminated, some of them were bi-weekly, weren't bi-weekly. So we really tried to, we spent probably a month and a half, 2 months to go over everything. Our guys have been cutting. We hired GNS and another company to fill in and cut things so that we could, try to keep under the $25,000 cap till we could come up with a good proposal. I think we did a good job.
Thank you.
I have a question. I know we had approved some other companies before, was it 3 or 4 for mowing or earlier, was that last month or the month before that was going to be
Yeah,
cutting?
actually, there was 2 companies we used, was GNS, which realistically, nobody wants to do the cemeteries. And we're fortunate enough that they do them, because they do a fairly good job.
So is G&S going to be the only ones that are going to be cutting any city-owned properties?
At this point, yes.
Okay,
Because we got the bid now, we went forward. If it's approved tonight,
okay.
those will be the ones. The other company we've been using for cutting here and there will be told.
So their contract is up?
It's
No
not
one
really a
wants-
contract. We try to keep them at a certain amount until we could get this forward, so.
Oh, okay.
Mike,
No.
does that include mowing associated with building department?
No,
Okay, so I think the contract that Chairman Newsom might be thinking of might have been a
oh,
building
was the contract that,
department.
Oh, the one
Yeah.
that they had 4 or 5 companies that they
They
were?
will be
Okay.
rotating.
Okay,
for
okay, that's to
mowing,
use, okay,
And
all
then
right,
we lean the properties.
okay. I knew we had high, I knew we
That was
had,
part of that grant too, right?
I know,
Some of them,
okay,
yes,
Yeah.
depending on, not all of them.
Right.
okay, so this is separate, okay, all
totally
right.
separate. And I do have a list from Ms. Newsom of every place we are doing 6-week mowing, bi-weekly mowing.
Okay,
If you'd like it, I can get a copy to you before next meeting.
the other question I have we sprayed for mosquitoes yet this year?
Yes, we have 1 spray so far. We have 2 this year.
We-
As a matter of fact, Clark will be here tonight in the audience in case we have questions.
So we sprayed once,
Yes.
and we're going to be spraying again when?
There'll probably be, it depends on the weather. Right now, we're going through a dry spell, which is good. So as
Okay.
long as the weather continues to be dry, what'll happen is all those beds will dry out, and the mosquitoes will start to thin out, except for yard mosquitoes. Those are the nuisance ones. You know, you go out and you mow your grass, they're kind of in the grass. So what'll end up happening is probably later on this summer, and they try to do it when it's calm. If it's windy, it doesn't do any good. If it rains, it doesn't do any good. There's a lot to it.
Are we putting them in the sewer?
Sewer,
thing?
yes, they are.
Okay,
Matter of fact, I think they've done once or twice. There again, we get heavy rains, what happens is the chemicals wash,
right,
okay?
Okay.
So mosquitoes, I'm professional.
okay, all right.
I have one.
Uh,
The
Alderman Fleury.
contract lists like the fiscal year, right? But like, they're not gonna have to mow in November?
No, actually,
It's
this
just
the
till
contract
November.
goes until November.
The contract is till
Okay.
November.
I
And
thought
that's
these
why
were the ones
it's a
that
little bit
went
less
through.
too, because you stop and think, normally it would be from, I believe it is May, or no, April, somewhere in
Yeah,
there. it
starting
starts.
earlier.
So we've had a couple months where we haven't used them. Our guys have been out, these guys, and the other 2 contractors. So it is a little lower because of that, because it starts,
July 1.
right. And we'll talk later about my ideas on how to do something with this down the road.
Oh, next year?
Yes.
Okay,
Or before I decide to do another contract, we'll have a discussion, okay?
okay, this is just for 1 year as well, right?
This is until, yes. November.
November, okay, all right.
I used to cut that boneyard. I got 5 guys. We do it for a lot cheaper. I used to start on Monday, go all the way till Friday, come back on Monday, start back over here, go.
Absolutely. I get you. That's what we'll talk about.
Just teasing.
another time.
Are there any
I'm
more
an experienced
questions?
cemetery cutter, though.
All right, roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera,
Aye.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item E, motion to grant a sole source waiver to the competitive bidding process pursuant to Section 2-458, subsection I-1, and approve the award of a contract to Covanta to perform leachate pumping during 2019-2020 fiscal year for a not-to-exceed amount of $50,000. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Seager. And I believe this is the only company that does this, or,
And what locations are they going to be addressing?
They only do one, and it's at Delphi landfill. That's just off of Sunset. I don't know if you know where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened is, they've been doing it for years. We did go out to competitive bid. They got the bid in late. They were the only ones that bid, but we couldn't say, okay, you might as well get it. You were the only one bidding. So what happened is, they're the only ones that are going to bid.
all right.
It's a hazard, it's a hazardous material that they take care of and take care of us. And we have to do it, unfortunately. I mean, we have to do
Right.
it forever.
Yeah.
Any more questions on the motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Seager,
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye. Item F, motion to approve the 2018 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, program period from May 1st, 2018 through April 30th, 2019, and to further authorize the CDBG Director to make amendments as necessary and required by HUD. Motion by Alderman Seager, second by Alderman Moiseo. Are there any questions on this motion? Do we need to speak to it? If there's no questions, roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Seager?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item G, motion to approve a contract with Global Group Incorporated for employee insurance benefits, brokerage, and consultant services for a period from July 15, 2019 through December 15, 2020, in amount not to exceed $5,416.67 per month pursuant to a request for information issued by Human Resources Director. I take a motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Seager. Are there any questions on this motion? Alderman Rivera.
Yeah, it indicates that this is, we're hiring this consulting firm to lower our cost.
The cost was lowered, Alderman,
And I just wanted to, just to expand on how the cost will be lowered briefly, and then if this was a budgeted amount.
Well, our current cost is $5,850 per month, so this will be a lower cost. The other bids that came in were all flat rate, and they wanted commissions as well. So this entity was our former brokerage consulting firm, so they're very familiar with our benefit structure. They're located out in Libertyville, and they were here when I was hired 8 years ago, so I don't know how much further they go back, predate that, I don't know.
Did the
They probably
Horton
were
Group
here
take
before.
over part of this?
The who?
Was the Horton Group taking over part of this?
So Horton Group was our brokerage firm, but that ended on May 31st. So their rates came in, but it also wanted the commission as well. We had a flat rate from them for 3 years straight.
Okay.
So I think it was just a run of the course.
Okay. So the commission changed it.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of entities now that are receiving commission-based versus the flat. So it's more money to be made, I guess, from a commission standpoint, especially when you're looking at our cost of $6 million.
Yeah.
Do you want me to address the, was it budgeted question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You can tell we've been working together for a while. Yes, so the way our plan year runs January through December, our fiscal year is May through April, so it's always a bit of a guessing game. So the way we budget for the employee benefits in general, health insurance, health, dental, life being one of those, is we take a weighted average of the employer cost of that from the previous 12 months and add an escalator to it. So this year I added an escalator of 5%. So the commission or the brokerage piece is just part of what you'll see in the line items under the hospitalization costs. So when we pay this invoice every month, it then gets charged back to the departments by head count, and it gets allocated out. So it's kind of added on to the cost of the employer share of health insurance.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Seager? Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item H, motion to authorize the city treasurer to secure a letter of credit with First Midwest Bank as required by the EPA relative to Yeoman Creek. Dr. Schwab. I should, motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera.
This is a letter of credit that's required by a consent order to a federal judge. The committee there has the authority to lower that amount. Originally, it was $25,000 to cover $2.5 million of potential liability that we have continuing with that project. It got lowered as the payments went, and it's not been lowered since by the committee, the Yeoman Creek Remediation Group. Even though each year I ask our attorney to ask them, the answer comes back no, and so the answer is that we will pay $14,000 and some for the remaining $1.4 million of liability we have to cover that in case we default. Any other questions?
So in 2020, they'll renew, what is this, the renewal date of 2020?
Yes, we
Is
have
that
to-
they'll
yes, we have to-
assess it
we-
again?
We required, I believe it's 3 months before it's due, we have to have that, we have to have that in place.
Okay.
So each year we do this ahead of time because it's required.
Okay. Are there any questions? Roll call, please. Thank you, Doctor.
Alderman Seager?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Newsom?
Aye. Item 3, reports and communications. We've done item A. B, post-employment benefits other than pensions. We're going to have our Ms. Tina Smigelski talk on the next, how many items? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I,
I'll go all night.
J. Okay.
Wow, a lot of people said no. So every year we have several actuarial evaluations that we are required to have conducted by independent actuaries. This is one of them, and this is the assessment of other benefits other than pensions, according to the Governmental Accounting Standard Board. So for us, that is essentially retiree health insurance. And disabled police officers or firefighters that are injured in the line of duty can receive health insurance benefits for themselves, their spouses, and their children to a certain age. And this is 100% paid for by the city of Waukegan. And that's the majority of these costs. We may also have situations where an employee opts to stay on our plan even though they have to pay the premium. And in that case, there is an implied or an implicit cost of having a retiree continue on our health insurance plan with younger active employees. So there's two pieces. There's the explicit cost of having the disabled police and firefighters continue on for free. And then there's a much smaller implicit cost of allowing retirees to stay on, whether it's for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, what have you. And that is required by state law that we allow that. So in the valuation report, Nyhard is our actuary that does this. If you look at page 3 of the report is the executive summary. And as of April 30th, 2019, our total OPEB liability is $12.2 million. So again, this is the liability, not just current, but also projected based on mortality rates and those kinds of things going forward. And you can see the actuarial valuation of our assets is 0. So unlike our police and fire pension funds and even our participation in IMRF, the city of Waukegan, like most municipalities, has not set up a trust to place assets in to offset the liability or pay this fraud. So you can see in the annual employer contributions, a little lower on that page, $686,000. That was actually our pay-as-you-go amount that we paid from the May 1st, 2018 through April 30th, 2019. Those are the premiums the city paid on behalf of the recipients of the disability benefit of the free health insurance for the year. So that's the actual cost that we paid to Blue Cross Blue Shield for them to have their benefits for the year. The OPEB expense above that includes that, plus interest that has accrued on the unfunded liability to date. So this is something that I've talked about with the mayor in the past, more than a couple mayors, actually, 3 mayors. I've talked about this, that at some point, if the city is able to, if the cash flow is sufficient, the city may want to look into setting up an irrevocable trust to start funding this. It will help our balance sheet because we do book this liability to our balance sheet, and it will also help with our bond rating as well, if we can have a better funding ratio other than zero, which we have now. As you can see, our total active participants, that's the number of employees that were on the plan when we did the study, was 332. We have 63 retirees that are either receiving the PSEBA benefit, which is the police or fire disability benefit, or was on the plan for some point in time as a retiree. Even paying that premium, there is an implied cost with that.
Tina, how much cash flow do you think we would need to?
To fund this?
Yeah.
It's similar to the police and fire pensions and even IMRF, where you obviously would not
Okay,
fund.
that's probably a loaded question, but I mean.
No,
Well-
it's fine. There's actually, I thought they had included in here, anything would be better than zero that
Right.
we're doing now.
Yeah.
But if you look at, page, here we go, on page 11,
Uh-huh.
the cash flow projections are right here. So on page 11, it shows you what they think the current retirees, future retirees, and what those costs would be.
Right.
And if we funded it. So if we were able to fund $500,000 to $1 million a year over time, then we could be paying our current amount that's due, and then eventually by 2049 be fully funded.
So if we can find an additional $1 million cash flow, that really helps us with this and our balance sheet and our bond rating.
Correct. And then the nice thing about this is if, once this trust is funded or adequately funded, then we're no longer dinging the police and fire operating budgets to pay that bill every month for that retiree health insurance.
Got it.
Instead, it would be coming out of a trust fund that's funded and separate. So it alleviates some operating expense. Like I said, the amount, we spent over $600,000 out of our operating funds on this last year. So it would take some time to get there, but it would definitely be a better practice than what we're doing now. But not huge. I mean, we wouldn't get upgraded like that, but it's one step.
Alderman Laura.
Is there any change going forward? Like, I know there's tier 1, tier 2, that, like, is there anything coming to change any of this in the future? Or is this like a Waukegan policy? Is
No,
this
PSEBA, it's Public Safety Employee Disability Act, Benefit Act. So that is a state law separate from police and fire pension law. So I don't know of any legislation currently. I don't know that that would be a very popular approach to take to try to eliminate a benefit from someone injured in the line of duty. But it is separate from the pension legislation. This is legislation that came from the state of Illinois. So Waukegan is in the same boat as many other municipalities in that regard.
But wasn't there the active participants part of the formula also? Is that just because they have to anticipate how many might become
Correct, that's
retired
part
or
of his
disabled?
forecast forward. Of this many participants, how many could potentially end up receiving this benefit in the future? That's part of his forecasts. But the PSEBA, which is the disabled police and fire, if a police officer or firefighter receives a line of duty disability pension from the pension fund, then they apply for the benefits through our HR department, and I think it's very unlikely that those benefits are declined if they receive that line of duty benefit.
Does this also include firemen and policemen that become disabled not as a result of a duty
It is
injury?
only line of duty disability that you receive this benefit.
Okay.
So if it's another disability not related to the line of duty, then you would not receive the PSEBA benefit. You can apply for it, but you would not qualify for the PSEBA benefit.
And is 63 a high number?
Yes. Comparatively, yes.
Alderman Taylor.
How would we pay for this? Like where would we move money from to put into this fund?
Currently, we don't have the resources necessarily since we've had a deficit operating budget. My recommendation would be, as with other long-term liabilities, that it would be something that would be appropriate to consider for a property tax levy or earmarking other recurring resources that aren't necessarily economically sensitive. So, police pension, fire pension, IMRF, our long-term bonded debt, those things are levied for. Property taxes, it's a very stable tax resource. Where something like our gaming revenues that we receive from the video poker machines, we allocate some of that to our police and fire pension, but we don't necessarily know that we're going to file something across the street with the clerk of the county, and get at least 98% of that back. So I would argue that it would be something appropriate to consider for a property tax levy, or another robust tax resource that's reliable. I would steer clear from things like water funds, because this is really a police and fire benefit and not related to our water operation.
I have a question. We are currently putting half of the all of the gaming revenue into the pension.
Correct.
Correct.
Would we, just to start this fund, could we put half into that and then establish this fund, putting half of the other into this just to get it established? And
Sure. So the gaming revenues currently are,
that's about $1 million a year?
right, it's about $1 million a year, and they're earmarked only by resolution, which is an act by this city council. So they're not statutorily restricted by state law, or, and so by action of this city council, you could reallocate those funds to another purpose.
Just put half in the active pension and then in the, this,
It's a very similar
Ability.
benefit to that. It's a long-term retiree benefit for police and fire, so it's similar.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, item C.
So the next super exciting report to cover is another actuary report, and this is one from the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. IMRF is the one that hires the actuary. We don't do that. They are professionally and independently managed. It is part of a multi-employer plan. And so we do receive this. They are on a calendar year basis, unlike us, which is on a fiscal year basis. So we do use this for our audit, but then we modify it a bit to annualize it for fiscal year. So IMRF does account for each participant separately. So even though our funds are commingled with other government agencies, every penny that's related to the city of Waukegan is accounted for separately. So again, the executive summary is on page 1, and this is going to look very similar to what you're used to seeing for police and fire pension actuaries as well. So our funding level, if you get down on a net pension liability, for the city of Waukegan's IMRF, we're funded at 85.5%, which is actually a really nice funding level. Before the recession, we were actually over 100% funded. Then the recession came and dinged some of the investments that were held, but that's still a really nice funding level to be at. And another interesting part, you can see here's the participants. We have 360 current retirees receiving benefits that have worked for the city of Waukegan. The non-retired members are 176, so that could be deferred pensioners. So maybe someone that left employment here at the age of 45, but had enough years in to draw a pension when they do turn 55. And then our active members, which are employees currently contributing to the plan at the time of this evaluation, was 247. So we had a covered payroll of $15 million through the year of IMRF.
Item D.
Item D is our water consumption summary that we provide to you every month. We had 1.16 million in billed revenue for the month and 217,000 gallons sold. And then the business and rental applications we attach with both. Again, if there's ever any questions that you may have about any of these within the board, and Walter Leeson has some questions about rental licenses, we're more than happy to facilitate those conversations. We might not have all the answers, it might be building
Some of these dates are like date applied 6/3, and the report that I have says pending.
Right. So for a new business license application, they have to go through a whole process, including our building department goes out and does an inspection, the fire department goes out and does an inspection. Once they say, okay, they can have the certificate of occupancy, then we will bill them. Once they're paid, then they have the license issued. So it does take some time.
Okay, and another question that I had regarding some of these, like there's one in the neighborhood indicated at Midtown Masonry, so it's construction. And do we have any limitations on like vehicles and?
We do, and that would be something that either the zoning group or the building department would flag for a business license would be.
Okay, so before it's issued, they know what the requirements are.
They should,
Okay.
yes. Now, if the application is honest, we can present it.
Mhm.
But yes, the building department as well as the fire department will go out and do an inspection, visit the actual site, and then make them aware that.
Great, thank you.
Is it that mic?
Yeah.
Someone's cell phone might be too close to the, high tech. The next is the video gaming report, and this is something that we download from the state's website. Again, I apologize that it's May.
Tina,
They are
can we go
very
back
slow.
on one?
Oh, sure.
On the business license, there's one there that I won't say the name on camera, but it sounds like another gaming facility.
Yes.
On Apple?
I'm looking at one on Lewis.
Right.
Oh, Happy.
yeah, there's one there too.
Happy?
What is that about? I thought,
Before the business
Oh,
licenses.
that's the restaurant, I believe, the one
Right.
on Lewis, that's that restaurant. Was that, alcohol license approved and everything?
Right, so the business license would be held until the liquor license is approved, or the gaming license is approved.
So that was approved.
They have to
okay.
apply for all of them. You can't just open up the business because you received the liquor license or the gaming license.
Yeah, so sometimes people go and they'll apply for a business license, and they might get the business license, but they might not qualify for the liquor or the gaming. So, I mean, it's a step that you have to do prior to getting, or, prior to getting a gaming or liquor, so they might go and apply, but it doesn't mean they're gonna get.
and then can they do a gaming name under a different name than the actual business?
No, we try to make sure that all of the application documentation matches all the way through the process because we only want them set up one time in our receivable system.
Okay.
But they do need to have the business license and have had the building department go out there, fire department, make sure that they meet all of those requirements before they are able to apply for, well, they can still apply for it, but before they're able to get the liquor license, and they need a liquor license in order to get a gaming license.
Because they almost sounded like gaming cafes to me.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And you can see that it's pending,
Mhm.
all the way over to the right.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? With the gaming.
The video gaming report, again, this is downloaded from the state's website. They are very slow in providing this, so I know that it's July, and this is just May's data, but we upload it as soon as we have it. So we just continue to provide this to you for informational purposes. The state of Illinois is the one responsible for collecting those revenues and dispersing them. Next is the food and beverage and the hotel tax collection report, which is not a public document. We're 2 months into the fiscal year with these. We will be stepping up our compliance efforts on this in July and August once again. We always do send letters if someone hasn't been compliant, hasn't reported their taxes. And we do have to work with Corporation Counsel to strengthen some language in our ordinances so that in the event they are blatantly non-compliant, right now, we cannot just revoke their liquor license or business license. We would actually have to go through an adjudication process for that, which is fine. But we would like to strengthen some of the language, at least so that we can, there's a 5% late fee, but we don't know what the late fee is because we don't know what the taxes due are. So we would like to strengthen some language where we can have like a non-filing fee that we would charge, or a delayed filing fee. So we'll probably be bringing that back to you in a couple of months.
Can I ask a question? Out of all the things, why is this not public information?
Because tax returns, this is associated with their ST1, which is their sales tax return filed with the Illinois Department of Revenue, and that is not subject to FOIA or public release.
Interesting, okay. All right.
And then we have our stabilization fund report, and I know that this is something that a couple of the new aldermen have asked about before. This is a completely segregated fund. It's Fund 714 that the treasurer accounts for separately. This is showing our cash balance in that fund, and we show you any payments back and forth between the different funds, any loans that are still outstanding, and then our minimum balance requirement is 8% of our general fund appropriated expenditures. So right now, we are $2 million over that minimum balance requirement. As we move forward into future fiscal years, as expenses go up, that 8% goes up as well. So at some point, we should contemplate adding additional resources to this fund. And then the treasurer's report is next, if Dr. Schwab would like to review that.
I heard this off of hearing, all you're doing is accepting the treasury report. Do you have a question about it? You can call my office anytime. When you're accepting it, you're just accepting that I file with that treasury report.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, Doctor. All right, budget to actual.
And then the last report is our line item budget to actual report. It is a lot of information and data. If any of the aldermen ever want to go over this in detail, I'm happy to do that. What we will start doing is on a quarterly basis, we'll be providing a higher level overview of the budget to actual and focusing on probably three primary funds: the general fund, the water fund, and then our parking enterprise fund. But again, this provides information year to date. If you look at page 4, which is a general fund summary, you can see that we are 17% through the fiscal year. Our taxes collected are at 27%, which is to be expected because property taxes were all due, the first installment, so we started receiving those. If you compare to the year before, you can see that we're pretty much on track in all the other areas. We're a little behind where we were before with the fees, and intergovernmental revenues is impacted because last year we had the Housing Authority grant in the general fund, and we moved that out this year. So you'll see that budget's a lot lower. But other than that, our revenues are tracking pretty well. On the expense side, our central services is tracking pretty well, as well as the other departments without police and fire. The salary ordinance was just approved, so those retro pays will hit when you look at this next month. Fire department, again, just bear in mind that they are 2 years behind with an expired contract. So at some point when that contract does move forward, we will have significant retro pays that will hit this as well. So their numbers are going to look a little more favorable. And when we do that quarter review, we will include some projections that would include that number in there. But overall, for the first couple of months, we are doing okay. So again, if there's ever any questions about that, and we will have more to talk about when the quarter ends.
Okay, is there any more questions? I'm going to take a motion by Alderman Seeger, second by Alderman Moiseo to adjourn, 6:16 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We are adjourned.